Good morning, beauties. How are you feeling this morning, this day, whatever time this finds you in? It is the morning for me here in the Northern Hemisphere in this earliest part of September 2025 as we shift toward, in this particular part of the earth, toward this fall time, moving toward the fall time, right? The dying time, in order to rebirth time. But what it's bringing for me this morning is this quality that we call the dark night of the soul. Okay? And inside of that, for me, contains fear and faith. And as I think I've mentioned to you here, I share things here that I myself have experienced and channeled through, and in my years in this lifetime on this beautiful planet of ours, experiences I have had that have had a lasting effect on me. And the dark night of the soul is a place that I have experienced personally. We utilize this term because we have reference points for it from other people's experiences. So we've named it in English the dark night of the soul. And what does that mean? And what might it mean for you? And also culturally, or as a species, as a family, right? This human family, I believe on some levels, is going through a dark night of the soul. And for me, the dark night of the soul was a deep dive into fear. And all of these perhaps ancient fears, perhaps unacknowledged fears, familial fears, happened inside of my experience. And it dropped me to my knees, quite literally. Everything seemed to have fallen away, and I was left with myself in a very profound way. Now, are we always in that state? Yes, actually, we are always with ourselves, but we can fill up the space in our minds with a multiple layer of distractions. And also we can have had our minds and our bodies and our spirits filled up with words that have been spoken over us, with patterns we have created in response to other people's patterns, such as our parents, the culture itself, right? And then that starts to become what we call our personality. And all of this is something that each and every human being walks through these different steps, right, as we develop. This, I've in the many hundreds of people that I've worked with, and from my own experience, I have never met a person yet who hasn't had to walk through many layers, who has not been patterned by their experience growing up, right, one way or the other. This seems to be the human condition. And right now, it is clear to me that humanity itself is waking up to this unified field. Not everybody is consciously waking up to it, but we are being awakened, right? And sometimes waking up from a deep sleep can feel really startling and even frightening, right? When we're coming out of a dream state or we're deeply in sleep, so to speak, somebody shakes us and wakes us up and says, get up, right? That is very startling. And I feel that we are at that moment in terms of this entire family of humans. And it is also a dark night of the soul. It is where we are forced to question what is meaningful, what is real, what do I value, what do I believe, where is my faith? Okay, this word faith for me came very clear during my own dark night of the soul. as a non-religious person, but a highly curious, deeply and profoundly spiritual person who has been free to investigate many different religions and spiritual traditions, right? The word faith had to be something that I naturally could relate to because I didn't have it associated with any religious teachings. You may have had this term faith tied to a particular religion, and that is neither bad nor good unless in your experience it was harmful, right? Then there's pain associated, right? And there may be a rejection even of the word faith. What if we explore this idea of faith, taking the vibration of that word faith, faith? What is that sound current, right? I'm speaking in English because that's the language I know best. So, faith. What does that feel like in your body, right? We're going to work with language in that way right now. Faith. For me, it has a soft quality. It has a holding feel in my body. Faith. That TH sound on the end and that F, faith. And when I had my dark night of the soul, where there was so much fear in my body, mind, and spirit, and I had to acknowledge how much fear I had been carrying around, probably most of my adult life, without truly acknowledging it. The dark night of the soul, right? The rug being pulled out from under my feet in a variety of ways, right? Almost all the ways that one might imagine a dark night of the soul, right? Big things being taken away, pulled away. And I was left with, again, myself, my body, right? My mind, my soul, my spirit, my heart, right? The energetic field that made me who I am. And it was sort of a void. And for a long time it was just racked with fear, panic, fear, crying, weeping, right, etc. And then I found myself following this idea of faith, pursuing what do I have faith in, right? Because there's got to be something bigger that I can lean into, because all the worldly effects had been pulled away, all of those structures. So right now, I believe I know all of us are on some level in a particular kind of a dark night of the soul. Okay, that doesn't mean everybody is in the midst of breakdown and every human being is feeling terrified, right? But there's a force here that is filtering through to all of us in various ways, and we have a choice to uplift out of fear, anxiety, tension, terror, right? If there are those things in your field, you may not be having any of those things in your field, right? You may be feeling super fulfilled, right? Very awake, very conscious, very grounded. And if so, I'm blessing you, and that's so beautiful. And that's what our goal is to arrive back in your center, even if everything feels to be lost, to be able to find your center no matter what. Now that does not mean that if there's grief to be felt, grief should not be felt. It means to feel the grief, to feel it, to reveal it, to express it, and to ground it through your body, but also to be able to lean back into something bigger than your own will, right? Your own human, sort of the story that's been given to us about willpower, to push through, right? To navigate in this way, versus this ultimate surrendering into faith, okay? Navigating that is a big deal, right? Especially if you have old religious, stories that have oppressed you in any way, right? To navigate back to your own original sense of faith is a big deal, and it takes courage. A dark night of the soul takes courage. That word originates with the French word coeur, which means heart, right? The ability to drop into our hearts and to start to consult our hearts first. We are so used to, in the West, leading with the mind, right? Having the mind dominate everything. Dropping into the heart, right? In my own dark night of the soul, I had nowhere else to go but into my heart. And in desperation, right, to lean into the question of faith. Can I surrender into something bigger than myself that I do not understand? I wanted to be held, and I wanted to know that I was held. And it was from desperation, right? Dark night of the soul sort of inspires desperation, right? The word inspire might not be what I was thinking of at the time, but indeed, I found myself calling out, walking, right? Taking walks in nature. Luckily, I was in this space here. I had moved back from New York City, right, where it reached its fever pitch, and moved back to this more rural environment. And I would find myself walking down the road, literally with hands up, saying, I need help. I'm asking for help. I didn't precisely know what and who or where I was asking for help. I just was in such a shattered state that it revealed something in me that I had been oppressing, because I had been living in an intellectual and spiritual on a certain level, but I had not yet surrendered myself, not really, to this release back into allowing myself to be held by something bigger, by something that encompassed everything. And by way of that walk, that path through dark night of the soul, I was offered medicine that I would not have known was there for me if I had not been able to lean into surrender and to invoke faith in something bigger that I had been pushing away. Why had I been pushing it away? Fear of being seen as vulnerable, right? As not knowing how to do it all, not knowing the answer to everything. And that is why I had to have a dark night of the soul, and I believe that is why humanity, and particularly Western humanity, needs a dark night of the soul in order to reaffirm that we are part of a multi-layered galactic experience. This is not just an human on Earth 3D experience we're having. This is a mysterious and mystical and vast and ongoing energetic experience of consciousness. And to reject that and to stay in the very linear version of what it is to be a human had become so burdensome. And I think any of you who might be here know that to be true. That we had to shatter things, and we had to invoke a dark night of the soul in order to ask ourselves these questions. Where is your faith? What do you have faith in? Back to the breath. Breathing slowly back into your body. And today, and perhaps over the next few days, to ask yourself these questions. What does faith mean to me? What do I have faith in? I call it big love. Okay, it can be called God. It can be called anything, and there are no words that can possibly name this great mysterious energetic of creativity within which we all live and are. So, how do we work with fear, acknowledge fear, and lean into faith? Number one, connecting with others, having a communal experience is extremely important. We do not isolate, we reach out. I reached out to prayer lines at Agape in Los Angeles, which became one of my ballasts during this experience. I had not been raised with religion. As I said, this was, right, for me, this was really breaking some of my own internal structures to be able to be that vulnerable. But again, dark night of the soul breaks everything open and cracks everything open. At least it did for me. And as I invoked, as I called in something I didn't even understand, something that I was actually afraid of the word God. I found that as an intellectual very frightening. So, by way of experience, I arrived myself, gave myself permission to have faith in something that I couldn't see with my outer eyes. And yet, as a little child and a young human being coming up through my life, I saw spirits and ghosts and had supernormal paranormal experiences all the time. And I give that a lot of credit for my ultimate ability to challenge the dominance of the intellect and the mind. Because I already had a reference point, and I dare say you probably do too. Because we are all beings who see more, know more, and can have access to more than we have been told that we have access to. So this is a time of remembering yourself, waking yourself up from the dream, invoking your own abilities to remember how to empower yourself and become sovereign again. In a communal way this time, though. In an Aquarian way. So, my loves, that's what's come through. I can always feel when it's like, okay, that's it. And I give thanks to my team and to my connection to Great Spirit, Big Love, God, the Divine, that which lives within me, that's that which I am, that is beyond the personality, and give great thanks. I am so grateful to be able to be sitting in this space right now and to be talking to you. Maybe there's just one person who tunes in to this. Then I say this is for you. And sending so much love, so much strength. Until soon.